Hi, Mrs. Brown here. Today we're going to learn a little bit about the Chinese philosophies of Confucianism, Legalism, and Daoism. So we're going to look at these for ancient China and learn a little bit about each one before you guys get into your philosophies simulation. So Confucianism was a philosophy that really stressed harmony and social order and relationships. So it was an ethical system. It was founded by Confucius, obviously, Confucius. And it was founded during the Zhou dynasty, we think 551 to 479 BCE. And even though Confucianism was founded during the Zhou dynasty, you really should associate Confucianism with the Han dynasty. The Han dynasty was the dynasty that used Confucian ideas and really promoted the Confucianism idea or Confucian idea of education, and actually administered Confucian education and Confucian civil service exams to tie to the civil service system. So you really should associate Confucianism with the Han dynasty, although it did first begin during the Zhou dynasty. The books for Confucianism are called the Intellects. And like I said, Confucianism does stress education, but it also stresses filial piety, this idea of kind of respecting and remembering your ancestors and your family and those that are older than you and came before you. In fact, respect is a huge part of Confucianism and Chinese society in general. And Confucius really looked at social harmony and order in terms of classifying the way that you should behave based on the 5 relationships. So these are like the relationship between ruler and subject, and father to son, and husband to wife, and older or elder to younger, and friend to friend. So Confucius talked about how pretty much all the relationships that we have in our life fall into one of those 5 categories. And there are certain ways that you should act and certain ways that you should behave depending on what the relationship is. And it's all about respect and knowing your place and learning and education and remembering your ancestors. So that's a little bit about Confucianism. Daoism, which you may see with a D or with a T, that's okay, either way is fine, was another philosophy or ethical system, and the founder of Daoism was Lao Tzu. So we pinpoint Daoism during the Zhou dynasty. It emerged around the 6th century BCE, and Daoism is really all about simplifying life and simplifying the way that you live and following the laws of nature, following this harmony with the universal life force. So our book for Daoism is called the Tao Te Ching, the way of virtue. And the big ideas for Daoism, obviously following Tao or Tao, the way, which is this life force, this universal energy. And the way that we can find that universal energy and kind of fulfill our life is to simplify our life, to kind of follow the laws of nature. Taoists looked at how humans seem to not always follow the laws of nature. They don't seem to follow the order of things, and so we should be more simple in our lifestyle. We should kind of get rid of all the complex infrastructure and kind of just value life. And I always joke that the Taoists are like the hippie, like the hippie group of the Chinese philosophies, because they're all about like peace, man. We should just simplify our lives and be in harmony with nature. So that's Taoism. Legalism could not be more opposite from Taoism, where Taoism is very free. It doesn't really set complex rules. It just talks about following kind of this natural order of things. Legalism, which you really should associate with the Qin dynasty, was very regimented and very strict. it was a philosophy that was used to influence Qin politics. And it basically stressed a lot of government control. So the government would be very powerful. They would have censorship of the people. They would control, rule with an iron fist, if you will, and crush any rebellions before they even start. And part of that was making sure that people who might be free thinkers or scholars or people who could inspire rebellion wouldn't be able to even get that far. So there was very much this monitoring of what people were saying and what people were doing, and this censorship. They said that people were evil and selfish. They needed the law in order to make sure that society was running and functioning properly. And they also, Huangdi also, made sure that people who were breaking the law were punished very harshly. So using the law and using fear to make sure that people were respecting the government and respecting the ruler and not doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. With this also came monopolies and state-controlled industry and a very powerful military. So, some scholars have looked at legalism and thought, this is very preliminary communism, or this is very preliminary totalitarianism, and maybe so, but basically they were just trying to make sure that they maintained control because they had, the Qin dynasty had emerged out of a period where there wasn't as much government control. So yep. So these are the three dynasties that you need to know: Confucianism, Daoism, and legalism. I would be able to think about being able to compare and contrast these philosophies. I would even think about which philosophy you think is the best, and why you think it's the best, and why you think it was most effective or would be most effective. You might even want to think about applying these philosophies to your own life. What if we were in a school that was founded on Confucian rules or Taoist rules or legalist rules? What would that look like? How would the rules be affected if we were following these philosophies, and which one would be the most effective in that circumstance? So think about all these things and make sure that you really have a good understanding of these philosophies.